Hello folks, this is another video from Microsoft Excel. The topic this time is pie chart. The scenario that has been chosen for the pie chart brings us right back to our Excel exercises in the very first week that we were here. And I'm going to base this on the Las Vegas trip. Now from the spreadsheet we can see that there's been a flight, a taxi, a hotel and food. And what I would like to see when I create this pie chart, how each of these different categories lays out. For example, I want to know how much or the percentage that went to the flight, to the taxi, to the hotel, and to food. The first thing we have to do is to get our data set. The data set includes all the information that I would like to display in the pie chart. So what I would like to highlight then is the information, the category names. If I click where it says flight, we can see that the cell reference is B2. I'll keep the mouse button held down and I'll go to the taxi, B3, the hotel, B4, and the food, B5. So that would be my first selection, my first column that I need for my chart. The second column is obviously going to be the price. If I hold down my Control key lets you select more than one column, and I click for my first price, and that's £789.45, but more importantly from Microsoft Excel, it is that cell reference, it's C2. So I slide from C2 to C3 to C4 and down to C5, and I'm going to let go of my mouse. My selection then starts me at B2 and it finishes at C5. That is known as my data set. So now I have got the information selected that I would like to display in the pie chart. So I'm now going to go and create that pie chart. I need to change my tab from Home and I'll click on Insert. Insert is the tab that I use to create the chart. Almost in the middle, one of the sections is called Chart, and the chart that I'm interested in is the pie chart. So I'll take my mouse across to where the pie chart is, and you can see there is a drop-down menu there. If I click into that drop-down menu, it gives me the different options of pie charts that I can display. Now remember, we're doing this for our level 1 essential skills, so we choose the first one. The first one is a better representation because it's easier to print and it's easier to see. So if I click into the first one, what you can now see is that I have a small tiny pie chart that has appeared inside the same worksheet as the trip to Vegas, where I find all my calculations. So the first thing that I would like to do is to move that to a sheet of its own. I'm still in my Insert tab, and now if I take a look the whole way across at that menu, I have one there called Move Chart. So I click into Move Chart and it will present me with a dialog box. Now I don't want to keep that in the worksheet entitled Trip to Vegas, so I click for New Sheet, and it's not a bad idea to give it a name as well. Again, naming this sheet helps explain the information that sits inside it. So I'm going to call it Chart for the Trip and click OK. The chart will then move from the very first worksheet, which was Trip to Vegas, and it now has a worksheet all of its own. If you look at the bottom, you can see it says Chart for Trip, and it's beside the Trip to Vegas. We have now created our pie chart. Now we need to label the pie chart correctly, and we need to make sure that it fits the standards for our level 1. So the first thing that I would like to do then is to give it a proper title. At the moment it simply says Chart Title, which means nothing. So if I click in, you will recognize that it sits inside a piece of flexible text. So we know from doing our logo that you take your mouse inside there and you click and you drag to highlight it. Now what I would like to call this then is Trip to Vegas Costs, because that's effectively what we've done. We've broken down those costs into the flight, into the price of the taxi, into the hotel, and into the amount of money we want to spend on food. And I'll click outside. Now, the next thing that I would like to do is I would like to bring in the values so I can see exactly the amount of money that was spent on each of those 4 different categories. Make sure that your chart is selected, and you'll know it's selected because it has the handles or the dots that run round the outside, very similar to an image. Where you want to go from there is to make sure that you're in your chart tools, and it will only come up if you have your chart selected. Again, very similar to your picture tools. Make sure that you're in design. Now, when we're in design, we'll come across to the add chart elements in the extreme left. So if I click the mouse, you'll see I start to get a pop-down menu. Now, chart title is already taken care of, so I don't need to worry about that. But I'm going to come to my data labels. Now, with the data labels, I can decide, do I want to put them in the center, inside edge, outside edge, or let the computer choose for me. What I'm going to choose is the inside edge because I like it to go around the outside, but I don't want it to be too far inside that it's hard to read, or to sit outside, which reduces the size of my chart. So I'm clicking for inside edge. You will now notice that the values for each of the 4 categories that I was interested in has now been displayed in the chart. The legend then sits at the very bottom. This is the default position, but with level 1 essential skills, you need to prove that you can move things, you can change things, and you can make things suit the standards for your portfolio. What we want to do now is to be able to move that to the right-hand side. Check and make sure that my chart is highlighted, and I know it's highlighted with the dots. Make sure I'm in design, and from design then I'm going to go across to the add chart element. If I slide down to the legend section, you will see straight away it's been placed at the bottom. So I'm now going to change its position, and I'm going to click to the right. That will then change my legend. So I've now brought in my pie chart, and I've labeled my pie chart correctly. However, this is meant to be a title, yet it is quite small. We need to be able to see the values, and again, they're very small. And as for the legend, it's very tiny, and it's very difficult to read what those category names are. So the first one I'm going to start with then is going to be the title. So I click in once to get it selected. Now I change back to my Home tab, and we will move back into that all familiar font section. So I'm going to change the font, and I'm going to bring it down to Arial. Arial is my go-to font. It's the font that I like to use because it's easy to read, but you can change the font to suit your own portfolio. You'll have chosen different fonts for your newsletter, so you might as well travel those fonts into your spreadsheet as well. And instead of 14 point, I'm going to go to 20 point. And I'm also going to make it bold, so now it really stands out. I'm going to click into the legend, and again you can see the legend has come up as a piece of flexible text. I know that because I can see the handles, and if I wanted to, I could actually move its position. But what I want to do is to go back to the font section, choose my font. Again, it's going to be Arial, and I'm going to increase that now to 14 point. So I can now easily identify all of the different parts of the pie chart. For example, yellow is food, the blue is flight, and you can see it a lot clearer. The final thing we want to do then is to be able to change the values. So if I click once into one of those values, you will see that it brings up all of the values that sit inside that pie chart. I'm back to the same position before, which is our font selection. I'm going to choose my font, which is Arial, and I'm going to bring these up to 12 point, and 12 point seems to fit in quite well. Just to be extra, what I would like to do then is to make them red so that they really do stand out because they're sitting on very pale pieces of pie. And if I click outside to deselect, you can then see that I've created the pie chart that I'm looking for. I have a title that identifies the information. I have a legend that's easy to read, and I can check the colors as I'm looking around. And equally then, I have the values placed on. The values in this case is the amount of money that has been spent, So I'm checking that I have my pound sign and my 2 decimal places, and I also changed the color to red just to make those stand out as well. That then concludes our pie chart. Thank you.